For the longest time, we'd heard of a phrase. It was called the 9-year itch. The 9-year itch for governments in power for Modi Sarkar now seems to become the 10-year itch. As Narendra Modi gets deeper into his third tenure as Prime Minister, for many it's a record breaking feat. Why not? He's now become the Prime Minister for the third straight time. But since the 4th of June, since he took oath as Prime Minister, it seems things are just not adding up for the NDA government. With me, my colleague who's been keeping a close eye on all things coming out from Raisina Hill, from the Prime Minister's residence, Sudeep Mukhia. Sudeep, why is it that if we were to draw a comparison between, say, Narendra Modi 3.0 and Manmohan Singh 2.0, are there similarities now between the two, given the spate of rollbacks that we have seen, the intense amount of criticism which seems to be coming against the BJP-led establishment? Suddenly, all of a sudden, it's just not adding up. Why?
So, somebody said to me the other day, is exactly the same question you're asking. Is NDA 3 a warmed up version of UPA 2? My response immediately was, look, that was 10 years. This is okay. 10 years plus 6 months. But let's just look at it as 6 months. But there is a grain of truth in what you're saying. Let's just quickly just talk about what happened today in the CBI, in the Supreme Court, when Arvind Kejriwal got bail. One thing is he got bail.
Right.
Other thing is a term that came back to in our memories, it was still there, but it got refreshed. Caged parrot. Caged parrot for the CBI. It is exactly the term that was used by the Supreme Court in a situation not similar, but about the CBI, when it was called a caged parrot because of what happened with the CBI director himself.
Justice Lodha, I remember. Justice R.M. Lodha was listening to a case related to coal block allegation.
That's right.
And he had used the term caged parrot to hit out against Ranjit Sinha, who was then CBI director.
Yeah. I mean, caged parrot to come back in a situation like this, what does it point towards? It points towards the fact that there is an adversarial relationship building between the courts and the government, which is exactly what had happened with UPA 2, especially towards the end of its second term.
And coming as it does, just a day after the Prime Minister went to the Chief Justice's residence for Ganesh Puja, I couldn't help but reminisce about the resignation, if I remember correctly, of the then minister who was in charge for the investigating agencies, Ashwini Kumar. He had to step down.
Right.
Why? Because again, there were certain questions which were related to probity. Apples, I mean, it's in the same genre. The Prime Minister going to the Chief Justice's residence, again leading to intense criticism, intense speculation. Suddenly, a day later, there is this verdict which has been given on Arvind Kejriwal. The judiciary and the UPA clearly were at loggerheads, UPA 2. Are we now seeing something similar, judiciary versus NDA 3.0?
It's not apples and oranges, which is what you were going to say. It would be more like Kashmiri apples and Kinnauri apples. It's apples to apples, different kind of apples. But the fact of the matter is, the packaging is still the same. There is a situation where there is a conflict between what's happening in the courts and what is happening, what happened in UPA times. I'll just give you a last quick reminder. The Supreme Court had ruled on royalties from mines, right? Now the court, it's a 7-bench judge which gave that judgment.
9-judge bench actually.
9-bench judge that gave that judgment. But the government has gone back and said, look, you need to reconsider this. Will it bring out an ordinance now to get over this? It's reached that level of I would say, in some ways, conflict.
And in many ways, Sudeep, look at the constant bars which are being thrown against the Prime Minister by the RSS. And again, I'm reminded of that famous incident of Rahul Gandhi appearing out of nowhere at a press conference, tearing apart the ordinance which would have given the likes of Lalu Yadav at that time, some reprieve. The RSS breathing down the neck of the BJP leadership. Rahul Gandhi was breathing down the neck of the then UPA leadership. Again, similar comparisons.
So you're absolutely right. And in fact, Rahul Gandhi, just to quick aside, Rahul Gandhi would himself have been helped by that ordinance when he got disqualified, if he hadn't torn it up. But the fact of the matter is, there was clearly internal conflict in the UPA. And within the Congress, now there is internal conflict within the Sangh Parivar, as we are seeing. How Nadda, JP Nadda, the president of the BJP, had said that RSS is not essential for us for electoral victories, and how after the 240 verdict that came, the RSS is literally attacked the prime minister in its own state and gentle way, but it has attacked the prime minister by saying that people shouldn't call themselves God and nobody should think of themselves above the country and so on and so forth. So yes, there is certainly an internal tension, as it was during the times of the UPA.
And look at policy makeover as well. There was the NDA government, the big lateral entry scheme which was launched with great fanfare. Even in the Agniveer scheme, certain changes. We've seen Rajnath Singh himself going public with it. General VK Singh, the former army chief, who was denied a ticket this time around, now saying, well, on certain occasions, you must reconcile with what is happening. On the policy front also, comparisons between UPA 2 and NDA 3?
In UPA, we were there together in IBN in the same channel
IBN, yes.
at UPA 2's slow demise. It was known as a rollback Sarkar because it would come and it would roll back. I'll give you one big example: FDI in retail. It was touted as the biggest reform. 50%, they said, the biggest supermarkets in this, you will have the biggest supermarkets in your neighborhood, and you will get whatever you want from abroad and so on and so forth. It got rolled back, and it got rolled back, I think, within days. The next big thing was when they announced, and it was a reform move, when they announced increase in railway fares, because railways were doing very poorly. Mamata Banerjee's man, Dinesh Trivedi, was the railway minister. I'm sure you'll remember the visuals of him, of a TMC MP coming and snatching the paper away from Dinesh Trivedi in Parliament, because Mamata Banerjee said, you must be crazy to say that fake fares should be high. Again, another big rollback.
And we've seen how Chirag Paswan, for instance, was trying to take credit when it came to the question of caste census, and almost overnight the government went back in terms of what it was trying to do.
And caste census, this
or reservations for the backwards
lateral entry. This government has gone back on. The broadcast bill it was supposed to bring. It's put in cold storage. The Waqf board is in JPC, but it's not just property indexation that created so much noise. People said it's like inheritance tax from the back door. But it's not just this. But that's not just the hallmark of NDA 3. Even when Modi was at the peak of his power, he had to take back the Land Acquisition Act, and he had to take back the farmer law, the farm reform laws. So it's a huge thing, to take back, and Modi had to apologize publicly on television for the farm laws.
But that's the beauty. That's the beauty of Indian politics. Sometimes I'm reminded of the kind of criticism which was mounted against Manmohan Singh. We called him Mohan Singh,
right?
A prime minister who doesn't speak. Now here is a prime minister, Narendra Modi, at the end of the day is with 240 seats, arguably still the most effective political communicator of our times.
Right.
But slowly but surely, it's looking like the prime minister is now struggling for new ideas. What is it? Is it that maybe the BJP government on its own has got itself too used to a similar way of thinking, and now that they're at 240, maybe they're not in a position to break through the shackles? Is that the fundamental problem?
So I think you can break that into two things. One, the prime minister's own style of working. The prime minister has never been on the defensive. He has never been in a situation where he says, I don't have the numbers. In Gujarat, after 2014, 303 in 2019. Who was expecting that? After the big victory in 2014, but even to 303, it's a huge thing. But now with 240, one thing that the prime minister has never, the BJP has, but the prime minister has never dealt with, are allies. Allies troubled the UPA hugely when they were in power, because the numbers were much smaller, and the allies were, the left was there, TMC was there, DMK was there. Somebody threatened to quit today. Somebody's throwing that tantrum tomorrow. Similarly,
even his own cabinet ministers today are creating problems for him. Look at the rather embarrassing video of the finance minister.
That's right.
Yeah. Nirmala Sitharaman. So allies on one side, cabinet ministers on the other side, some colleagues like Nitin Gadkari, who for the first time in over 10 years wrote a letter to Nirmala Sitharaman complaining against certain GST impositions. Bottom line, if the Prime Minister is looking for a new idea, he doesn't need to look too far. Sachin Tendulkar, India goes to Australia. I clearly remember the great Sachin Tendulkar himself, who was woefully out of form, played one of the worst innings of his life in a typically uncharacteristic Sachin Tendulkar style in Australia, but ended up getting to 100 because he decided to hang around. He decided to play defensive strokes. He decided to cut down his desire to hit lofted strokes or even his desire to score boundaries. And the Prime Minister looked for some inspiration from Sachin Tendulkar. I guess that is what will determine what happens as we move closer in an election year as well, with so many assembly elections staring at us. Sudeep, great pleasure as always to have joined you. If you liked it, well, you can comment, you can tell us what you thought about this conversation, and please ensure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel, www.squirrels.in on YouTube, on Instagram, as well as on our digital platform.